Welcome to the Wizarding Wireless Network podcast with me, AJ.
And me, Will.
Together, we will be bringing you our no-holds-barred thoughts, opinions, and detailed analysis on all things Wizarding World. So, with that in mind, please grab yourself a glass of fire whiskey and settle into this week's episode of the WWN. Insert dramatic music right here. Yes, please.
Welcome back to the Wizarding Wireless Network with your hosts AJ and Will, streaming to you on all your favourite podcast providers and on YouTube. On today's episode, we'll be looking at Chapter 8, The Potions Master.
Oh, you got it right this week. I'm very impressed.
First time.
I am very proud of you. Yes, so the Potions Master, let's get into it. School has started at Hogwarts. The sorting ceremony is over. Classes can begin. We are about to enter magical education. William, tell me, what is your thoughts on this chapter?
So this is the kind of introduction to... It's really hard to tell because at one side, it's a really interesting chapter, but you're being told it through Harry's eyes.
Yeah.
And it's suddenly a case of like, oh, school started, this is all very serious and very boring. And actually, there's a lot more hard work. But from our perspective as a reader, it's very much a case of like, but this is all the stuff we wanted to know about. This is what we wanted to kind of like, what was a wizarding school going to be?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's quite interesting though, because when, as you say, you do see it through Harry's eyes, but there's a bit in it that sort of really stuck out for me, and it was, he said that pretty much from the introduction of the chapter, everybody just keeps on saying, oh my goodness, look at him. Have you seen, him wearing the glasses? Did you see his face? Did you see his scar? Harry, on the other hand, he's just like, right, okay, yeah, I know that they're talking about me, but I need to get to the class. I need to get here on time. So his mind is just completely all over the shop. And I suppose as well, we find out that there are a few other pupils who have came from Muggle upbringing backgrounds who, like him, have got no concept of magic, no concept of the wizarding world whatsoever. So I think he starts to feel a little bit more at ease as, the time goes on into Hogwarts. Well, at least until he gets to the potions classroom and meets that prick, Severus Snape.
Yeah, I think it's very much a case of like, it's very reassuring where he's actually surrounded by a lot of more people where they're just all on the same level as he is. And it actually just goes to show how much of a good wizard Harry actually is and becomes compared to everyone else, because he's really starting out more on a level playing field than we as reader first thought, because obviously we're reading it through Harry's eyes and having all this anticipation. So absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is quite nice. Now, there's a few things in this chapter that really stuck out to me, and I was very excited when I reread this to an extent. Excited might be a bit of a strong word, but I felt a bit of a juvenile thrill, shall we say. There was specifically a part in it where it talks about the castle. And it says there's 142 staircases in the castle, which we all, we knew there was loads. I mean, I could never ever remember the amount of staircases. I can now, because in a pub quiz I got that question wrong, and it will haunt me till the day I die. So now I will forever remember that. But the section in this, it was talking about how varied the staircases are. And it says that they're wide, sweeping ones, narrow, rickety ones, some that lead somewhere different on a Friday. Like, it's just so random. And then you've got some with a vanishing step halfway up that you had to remember to jump. But then in this small subsection, little paragraph, it talks more and more and more about the castle itself. And in that in that paragraph, it feels to me like the castle has just entered not as a building, but as a character itself. The castle is alive. Everything within it has personality. And that never clicked with me up until I read this today.
The detail that I think is really introduced in this chapter, but really actually kind of almost forgotten about throughout the other books, because I don't remember things like this cropping up again.
No, certainly not. Except, of course, for the room of requirement. When they were talking about the room of requirement coming into existence for Harry and the Order of the Phoenix, he said it's like Hogwarts wants us to fight back. That's probably really the only personification of the castle that we get, unless I'm very much mistaken, which I probably am.
No, I think you are probably right, actually, because there's only one mention of the room of requirement in the Goblet of Fire, but then it's that introduction to that personification of the castle being another character in the Order of the Phoenix, whereas this is the first kind of reference to, I think, the castle in general being this quirky castle as well, actually, where wizardry and magic is still very much kind of quite kooky.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it seems to really tail off and die off towards, well, really after this book. It doesn't seem as abstract throughout the rest of the series. And I think when we look at the films as well, is it's taken that very mundane outlook on it's a staircase. They move, which is cool, but otherwise it's not as it is described in the books.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. But I mean, to me, as I say, just reading back on that, the amount of detail that is put into this one paragraph about a set of stairs that never really clicked with me. I was absolutely astounded when I started to look at the castle as a living thing, as a being, as opposed to a stationary building, albeit a highly enchanted one. But that's one of the things I love about reading these books back again and again and again and again. It's every time you read it, you're getting a different perspective of it. And I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it.
And then, no doubt, every time you read it, there's always that bit that you forgot the last time you read it.
Exactly. This is my justification for buying so many copies of the book with all the different covers.
It's just another excuse to reread it.
Exactly, 100%.
And to be fair, it's the same with this podcast, is since we've been doing this has actually been a really good excuse for me to reread. And I've gone so much out of then having these episodes.
Was that Peeves?
It is Peeves in the background.
Now, talking of which, coming on to little old Peeves, in this chapter, there was something that kind of cropped up for me. And it was when Harry was walking through to his first classes, and it specifically mentions Peeves again. I know you hate the non-existent bones of this person, but it specifically describes Peeves as being able to sneak up behind you, invisible, grab your nose, and then shout something. But for me, I don't think we've ever seen anybody perfectly go invisible with the exception of the invisibility cloak. So is that something that is possibly specific to poltergeists? Or I'm going to then bring in the Grey Lady in Deathly Hallows Part 2, because you know how she does that little weird turn into a puffball and then float through Harry?
Yeah, so I think actually I think the ghosts can go invisible, but it's...
Like, I need the mechanics of this. Like, whenever you die and you sign up to become a ghost, you get to that train station and you think, where am I going to go? I need, there has to be a PDF, a 100-page document for people to know this is what you're signing up for. Do powers of invisibility come into it?
Well, I don't think there's necessarily a ghost handbook, but...
Well, there should be. Someone write it. Someone write it. Patent it immediately.
But it can only be used by a ghost, so it's completely useless for alive people.
I am expecting this book from Bloomsbury Publishing in September of 2025. Get it in now.
This should have been part of that book set, the Tales of Beedle the Bard, the Quidditch History one, the Fantastic Beasts, and then Ghosts book for dummies.
Exactly. I want Cat's hands to, that's what I want. I want to see that TikTok in 2 years' time. Bloomsbury, I've given you a deadline.
So, yeah, we've got Peeves the Poltergeist, and obviously his another introduction to Peeves. But actually, it's more an introduction to actually how he is around the students.
Yeah, a prick.
Yeah. But then we move on to someone who's even worse than Peeves, Filch himself.
Oh God, I know. Little old Mr. Filch. I always really did feel sorry for that man. I mean, that man got hit with the shit stick in every which way.
Yeah.
And part of me's kind of thinking to myself, he is a bit sadistic because, he likes to hang pupils up by the thumbs in the dungeons. But can you imagine, right? Let's just put yourself in that mindset for a minute. For one, looking like that. I'm just saying. Number two, being a squib. And then, to rub salt in the wound, be employed at the UK's only wizarding school as a caretaker where you cannot use a wand to clean up. I, for one, would be writing into the squib union.
True. Do you want me to add more salt to the wound?
Go for it.
That his wife turned into a cat forever.
Now, this is the thing. I had written a little note beside this when I was reading through the notes of this. Is Mrs. Filch a maledictus?
Well, this is since obviously Crimes of Grindelwald, this whole thing has come out with Mrs. Norris being potentially a maledictus.
So in my little notes, which I have here on my little iPhone, I have written beside it, Argus Filch. I will read you verbatim. Wait, first meeting of Filch, blah, blah, blah. Talking of Mrs. Norris, it says, is Mrs. Norris a maledictus or was she a Kneasel? Very much like Crookshanks. And if there is though, I am a tad concerned about the level of infatuation that man has with a cat.
It is concerning.
It is slightly concerning. But then again, given the fact of how obsessed he was with Professor Umbridge and the Order of the Phoenix, that's kind of given him a little bit of light relief. So I'm kind of thinking...
But this is then where it gets a bit weird, because if Mrs. Norris is said maledictus, she would obviously be still around Filch whilst he's then trying to tail after Umbridge. Are they in like a love triangle because she loves cats?
Is it a polyamorous throuple? Are we making this canon?
I think we've broken Harry Potter. I think we've broken.
So we have got Mrs. Norris, Dolores Umbridge, and Professor Filch in a polyamorous power struggle relationship. Oh my God. There is some deep, dark corner of the dark web that has written this, or they are going to write it.
This is a Reddit post at some point.
It is a Reddit post, and see, to be quite honest, dear listeners, I really do not want to be part of it. So I'm giving you the ammo, run along with it. I'm just saying. So, talking of Mr. Cat-loving Filch.
I think one of the things that was missing about Mr. Filch was the fact that there's... Well, actually, it comes back to what you were saying about the Hogwarts castle as well, is the many secret passageways that's connecting the school together. Not necessarily where it leads out of the school, but just in general around the castle. And I think that's one of the things that was very much missing from the films. And I think really only showed up in a few of the games where there was secret passageways in and through the castle. And obviously Mr. Filch knows them better than anyone besides the Weasley twins.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's interesting how obviously Filch is an old character and almost compared to the ghosts in terms of the ghosts will pop up through doors, but Filch will basically just do the same. But moving on from Filch, we start to learn a bit more about the different teachers and the different classes within Hogwarts.
We do. Now, this was something that I thought would be a very good little quiz question because, as you know, I do like to send you a little question every now and again, every week.
Put me on the spot.
Pretty much, you know. I know you like being on the spot, in the spotlight like the Slytherin you are. No shade. I have written here in my little notes, and I kid you not, quiz will, on this. So, there are 7 lessons that every first year at Hogwarts has to take. Can you name them for me?
Okay. Charms.
Yeah.
Defense against dark arts.
Yeah.
Transfiguration.
Yep.
Potions.
Yeah.
History of magic.
Yeah.
Astronomy.
Yep.
And herbology.
Yep. And there's a bonus point. This isn't technically a class, but it's as a little addendum at the end.
What, of a lesson?
Yeah.
Is this actually a lesson, or is this
No, it's a full-blown lesson.
Is it to do with astrology? Like, is it like...
No, Cleo, no. No.
Oh, the listeners are going to be hating on me right now. Okay.
If I were to say to you, Wrongski faint. If I were to say to you...
Runes.
No. If I were to say to you, I want a nice, clean game from all of you.
Oh, flying lessons.
Yes! And also in this little, what I'm reading from is the enhanced edition of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone on iBooks. And beside it, it says, flying lessons in brackets on broomsticks are also compulsory.
I think Hermione would be disagreeing with you.
Oh, she disagrees with everyone. But yeah. Now, interestingly enough, one of the lessons that we don't actually see at all really throughout the whole series is astronomy.
Yes.
I know. The only time we really get to see the astronomy tower is when, Dumbledore takes a little flight off the back of it. But it says here that the pupils have to study the night skies through their telescopes every Wednesday at midnight. Now, my question is this. Practicality, how's that going to work? Because it's a castle in Scotland. It's cold. It's cloudy. It's rainy. What happens if you can't see shit through your telescope? Like, do you just stay there until the weather clears? Does it get postponed? Do you start classes later on during the day? Or, later on in the Wednesday as opposed to the Thursday? Like, I'm sorry. I need the curriculum. I need the contingency plans.
And how long is this lesson? Because are you out there for just an hour? 2 hours? Are you out there for the whole night?
Well, exactly. Who can say? I think it's a bit rough getting a first year to do a night shift.
That is a bit extreme.
Just a bit.
But yeah, I think it's definitely the latter points. It's more whether or not it'd be cloudy or not, especially in Scotland.
Mm-hmm. Blowing a hoolie anyway.
Saying that, they probably could have a spell just to clear the sky.
Well, technically they do, I suppose, don't they? Which is one that I can never actually say because it's such a tongue twister. But I think it's Meteorologynx Recanto.
So yeah, it's Meteorologynx Recanto.
Now, try saying that after 10 fire whiskies. Hurricane Katrina. More like Hurricane Tortilla. Gone.
So yeah, I always get surprised with this chapter actually in terms of how many lessons we do get given some introduction to. And one of them is herbology, which I'm always surprised about because obviously the films has got me so ingrained with herbology being introduced in Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah, I know, that's the thing. But don't get me wrong, I don't know if it's just me, but you do obviously have that fabulous scene with Miriam Margolyes as Professor Sprout in it. To this day, I can recite every word of that monologue. But for me, herbology, if ever I think of herbology, the first thing I think of is Devil's Snare. Just because I can remember Hermione saying, oh, Devil's Snare, I remember reading something about it in herbology. And I'm like that, did you? Aye? Good for you. How is that going to save me right now? It's like, we get it, you're smart, but come on.
Times of the essence, like Ron is dying.
Yeah, he is being garroted. But yeah, that's the thing. I do wish we had seen a little bit more of the classes in the books. In the movies, because I certainly know that when we come into Chamber of Secrets, a lot of the action does happen in the herbology greenhouse, not necessarily just in Greenhouse 3 when they're dealing with mandrakes, but I'm pretty sure they're dealing with venomous tentaculas, and that's when they see the spiders sort of heading off into the Forbidden Forest. Because I remember they were doing herbology with the Hufflepuffs as well, which I will need to go back and read, which I'll look forward to when we come to that episode of the podcast. But that's the thing. I do wish they had put that a little bit more into the movies, because you do sort of see now and again a few bits of the classes. But then again, I'm probably just saying that if we had everything we wanted in a Harry Potter film, we could probably still be watching it on the first go.
Yeah. Well, again, this is where I'm kind of interested to see what they do with the TV show, because whether or not we're going to get a lot more in terms of the classes, seeing a lot more of the different houses. Because like we said last week, the Hufflepuffs very underrepresented.
Oh, they really are. They really are underrepresented. Oh. But I am, do you know what I'm genuinely looking forward to for this TV show is seeing the Hufflepuffs and Ravenclaws in their Quidditch gear. Now, you only got to see, and I do mean a tiny, and I mean minuscule, microscopic snippet of the Hufflepuffs and their Quidditch robes.
Very briefly in Prisoner of Azkaban.
I know. I want to see Cho Chang beating Harry. Wait, did she even beat him at Quidditch?
Yes, she did.
I think she did, didn't she?
I want to see that. Cho Chang, honestly.
I want Cho Chang on a broomstick, grabbing that golden snitch with a left hand, eating 2 pumpkin pasties with a right hand. That's what the people want. That's what I want.
We then get introduced to Transfiguration.
We certainly do.
And Harry suddenly learns that there is more to magic than just waving a wand and saying silly words.
Absolutely.
So we find out that, obviously, with Transfiguration, there's a lot to it. And actually, you start off very small.
Yeah, exactly. It's a complex system, Transfiguration. It's sort of, if you will, for our medical listening colleagues, it's like the renal system. No one likes it, but you need to learn some element of it.
Because it has a lot of crossover to everything else.
Exactly. You know what it kind of does. And the smartest people tend to specialise in it because they like it. That wasn't me. That was not me. I did not like that.
No, you just went for the second hardest system in the body.
Cardiovascular, babe. 100%. Love it. Love it. Now, yes, we do learn a little bit more about Transfiguration. Professor McGonagall sets the tone very clearly in her lessons. She actually does kind of remind me of a history teacher that I did once have. But she basically says, anyone messing around in my class will leave and not come back. You have been warned. You know exactly what you're getting. You know the rules.
Yeah.
Obey them. And I respect her for it. Now, another teacher that we do see a little bit more about is Professor Quirrell. God, my heart goes out to that poor man. My heart goes out to him. So, for a Defence Against the Dark Arts teacher, he seems to be terrified a lot of the dark arts.
I really don't think he picked the right career path.
No, I know. It's sort of kind of like, like the whole garlic thing in his classroom. And Fred and George have even said that they think he carries around garlic in his turban to ward off vampires so that he's protected all the time. But they said that it's just this smell coming from his turban. Do we actually think it was Voldemort's semi-necrotic head?
I think it might have been.
I think it might have been. But interestingly enough, there's a little story here about how Professor Quirrell does get his turban, which may or may not be true, but I quite liked it. And it was apparently an African prince, as a thank you for getting rid of some troublesome zombies, gave Professor Quirrell the turban, which I think is really sweet, but for some reason I can't imagine him getting rid of any zombies.
No, nor I don't think even being gifted a turban from a prince would you wear that for the rest of your life.
But you know what? Make it work for you. It's a statement piece.
Well, exactly. I mean, walk into a room and everyone notices.
Yeah, the smell. I mean, do I lie?
When we're looking at Professor Quirrell and the way he's written in as a character, does it or does it not sound as if Professor Quirrell has taught previous years?
I think so, because, I mean, by the looks of it, Fred and George have known him quite well. And I'm trying to think what year Fred and George are in at this point. How...
I think they're third year at this point.
Yeah, they're only 2 years ahead. So Professor Quirrell must have been there for at least 2 years before, at least a year before them.
Mm.
But then again, because was the Defence Against the Dark Arts post not jinxed, cursed?
It was at that point, which is why I'm really kind of struggling to think, well, surely if Professor Quirrell was there last year, he shouldn't be here this year because the jinx is still in place.
Or could it just be that Fred and George are bullshitting?
Or because Voldemort hasn't fully returned to power, it's null and void.
I don't know. I don't know the whole legality of a curse.
No one's got the contract.
I know. We need the legally binding contract of said curse. Anyhow. So, another little special thing that happens in this chapter, and see, I am not going to lie, see, when I read this today, I got a genuine little bubble of comfort from this. It is Hagrid writing to Harry, one of his many first letters, inviting him to come down and visit him in his hut. Which I thought was so sweet. I just thought it was so sweet.
The whole thing was just so cute. So the thing that I found so cute about this chapter was the description of Hedwig, and it just melts my heart because of knowing later down the line. I'm not mentioning it. I've blocked it from my memory. But just the fact that she swoops in and every so often, like, she won't bring him post, but what she'll do is nibble his ear and just nick a bit of toast. And I was just like, my heart just melts every time.
That sounds like me in the morning. Just come in, steal your toast, have a nibble. Yeah. Oh God, Hedwig is cute. I love Hedwig so much.
She is adorable.
I know. Now, I'm just laughing at one of the notes that I've got here because there's a quote from this chapter, and it said, "It was lucky that Harry had tea with Hagrid to look forward to, because the potions lesson turned out to be the worst thing that had happened to him so far." And the note that I've written is, "Honey, you've got a big storm coming." Because if you think double potions with Snape is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, honey, good luck.
You haven't gotten to the end of the year.
I know. You haven't even got halfway through. This is your first week. Now, of course, we are talking about Professor Severus Snivellus Snape. Now, it's very clear from the offset, there is no disparity about this, that Professor Snape does not just dislike Harry, he hates him. Now, that is an exceptionally strong word
And accurate.
to describe someone. And very accurate. I've just written as a note, the sheer evil. The sheer evil in that. Now, this potions lesson, I cannot express enough how perfect Alan Rickman did this. If I read this book, if I read any of the books, it is Alan Rickman.
Honestly.
I can hear his voice. And that, even, reading it word for word off the page, the films did a very good job of putting the quotes from the book into the script. And every time I read it, it's just Alan Rickman. And he does it with such poise. He commands that classroom. And he commands you as a viewer watching it. But there's a section in here where, you know that quote when he storms into the classroom, there will be no foolish wand waving or silly incantations in this class. Now, please do correct me if I am wrong, right? But for someone who has created a lot of original spells, and as far as I can see, no potions whatsoever, it's not really that foolish, is it, Professor?
I think this comes from his dislike of having the potions master role rather than defense against dark arts. And I think it all stems from that's what he really wants to do.
But if he likes it that much, why does he say that it's foolish? Is it just because he's so bitter?
Yeah, I generally think it's the bitterness that has him so, like, nasty about spells.
Yeah.
But what was quite interesting was with Snape's description, and it's so obvious that JK, when she was writing the character, had Alan Rickman in mind, because it's when it's things like Snape had the gift of keeping a class silent without effort, and the fact that he spoke in barely more than a whisper, but you caught every single word.
Exactly. Even Hermione was poised. Like hanging off the edge of her seat. But in this in this part of the chapter, it just really does go to show how insufferable Hermione was painted to be. Because, up until this point, it was like she was just this girl that was a pain in the backside.
And just kind of like able to do things and was like the top of the class. But I know what you mean. This is now really highlighting how irritating she is.
Yeah, and it's not really until after Halloween and the incident of the troll that we know that, right, she's here for the long haul and we need to like her. And I'm very glad that we kept her. Because she has one of my favourite characters. Absolutely one of my favourite characters.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, I mean, like, her heart's in the right place.
But, I mean, jumping off your seat.
Oh, look, do you know what? We've all done it. Yeah. Do you know what? I'm at the age of 27, I am becoming self-aware of what I was like in school, and I was a prick.
Were you the Hermione Granger?
Well, I thought I was, but I was never smart enough to be the Hermione Granger.
You'd have the hand up. Jumping off your seat might be the wrong answer.
Now and again. Now and again. But yeah, that's the benefit of reflection and hindsight. It makes you a better person and overall practitioner. Thank you, NMC.
But to be fair, the fact that Hermione's jumping off her seat gives us the best comeback line ever.
Yes.
And it is obviously Snape is pressuring Harry to get these questions right. And Harry just comes back going, I don't know. I think Hermione does though, so why don't you ask her?
Exactly. See, sassy Harry from an early age is my favourite.
It is such a thing that is missing from the films, is sassy Harry. Bring back sassy Harry.
Do you know who I think sassy Harry would be? Imagine Harry on Felix Felicis, but for the whole of the 8 movies.
Literally, that scene is just how he should have been.
To this day, and I know a lot of people are going to come for me and say this, right? Because arguably everybody does not. Everybody, if you were to say to anybody, what is your least favourite Harry Potter film? A lot of people will then turn around and say Half-Blood Prince. That is something they got so right. The Felix Felicis scene was so good. It was so good. It's not my favourite film.
Oh no, don't get me wrong, it's not. But
it's not my least favourite film.
Yes. What is your least favourite film?
I'm not going to say it. I am not going to say it because I'm going to get cancelled. I will be cancelled. I'm not going to say it.
Fine. Then you have to stay tuned because I will be pressuring you every episode until I get it out of you.
I mean, there's not a film that I don't like, but there's one that I always was sort of kind of like, I'd pick it last.
So, obviously, he's being probed by Snape to answer these questions, but actually, have you heard about the questions being like subliminally, like as subliminal messages?
I don't really know the whole ins and outs of it, but it's something to do along the lines of a Lily, isn't it?
Yeah, like the fact that he is sorry that Lily has died.
Yeah. I'm sorry that she's dead. I'm not sorry that you didn't die, but I'm sorry she's dead.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I kind of wanted her to live, not you, but, you know, we got what we got.
Yeah, it's like you weren't part of the deal.
James and Harry, out of the picture. Lily,
Do you know what? I always feel so old whenever I think of that. See, whenever you watch The Philosopher's Stone, and especially when you watch back on The Deathly Hallows Part 2, and you see the Prince's Tale section, and you see Lily and you see James, like, lying dead, and you're kind of thinking, oh, like, they're in their mid-40s. They were 21 when they died.
I know.
21.
I know.
It turns out you don't need a magic wand. You just need Clinique, and then you're like, you're fine. Like, give me Clinique any day.
This is it. Kiehl's keeps me young, honestly.
Exactly. Well, sheer acid for Kiehl's. It's just like hydrochloric face peel.
Oh, it does the trick.
Well, I know you do give off that malnourished Victorian dead child look.
Thank you. That's what I was going for.
Do you know what? That is a strong serve. Do you know what? Coming back to last week's topic that we were talking about ghosts, if you were to die and you were to pick your outfit, I think that would be a perfect situ for you.
What Victorian garb?
Victorian garb. Imagine the woman in black. You know, the dead child in that.
Yeah.
I'm getting that vibe for you.
What, like the tall, like, chimney sweep look with the little, like, cap on?
That's the one.
Yeah, very Oliver Twist. Oh, come on, you've got to have seen Oliver Twist.
I haven't. I won't lie. I know a couple of the songs. I mean, I know the premise. I know the premise. Little poor boy asks for more food, doesn't get the food, becomes a thief, befriends head thief's girlfriend. Head thief kills girlfriend, and they all sing "Food, Glorious Food." They want McCain chips. I mean that's it, isn't it? That's Oliver Twist.
Anyway.
We digress.
We do. Let's circle back. So, we've got the questions. We've got Hermione jumping out of her seat. And finally, we get on to making some potions.
Yes.
Which goes horribly wrong and ends up with poor Neville being sent off to the hospital wing.
Standard for little old Neville.
Of course. Weirdly enough, wasn't Seamus blowing the classroom up?
It wasn't. No, it was not.
But obviously Snape finds some way of spinning it to Harry's fault.
Yeah, that's pretty standard really for Professor Snape. Although I must admit, he only took 1 point off him at a time as opposed to the normal 5 or 10 that he does in the films.
That is true. It is a very lenient point system.
Yeah, you can always tell though, because I mean, as the films and books go on, he just gets more and more pissed off. He's like, 5 points for breathing. Off. You snapped your quill, 10 points. Oh, your mother's dead, 50 points off.
We know where we stand with Professor Snape at this point.
Yes.
We know that Harry and Snape, they're not going to get on. They're butting heads from the get-go. And actually, this is going to be someone that we need to kind of keep an eye out for the rest of the book, because there is something there.
100%. Yes, there is many, many tales to be told in this little section of the story.
So, obviously, we've now had potions and we are moving on to Harry's favourite part of the day and what he's been looking forward to since that letter this morning, going and seeing Hagrid for tea.
Yay, let's go down to Hagrid's for tea.
So we finally get to see Hagrid and where he actually lives, and Fang, of course.
Oh, Fang. Do you know, I'm so glad that Fang survived the series.
Honestly, same. The one pet.
I know. Do you know what? Come to think of it, did any dogs die?
Well, technically, Sirius died.
Oh, and yeah, right. I'll give you that. I will give you that. One dog was severely harmed in the making of this film. All I keep thinking about is, I know, that's Melanie. That's a shame. She was really nice.
To see Harry break down his interactions with his class, especially Professor Snape. And Hagrid is very quick to dismiss Snape's pointed hatred towards Harry, which we all know why that hatred is, but Hagrid is very reluctant to let Harry know about it.
But then again, do you actually think that Hagrid did know the full ins and outs of the whole Lily, Severus, James affair type thing? Do you think he knew that? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, albeit my opinions on Snape will forever be solidified, but at the end of the day, he was Dumbledore's, ace card.
Well, you still had, Hagrid teaching classes, or at least being the groundskeeper whilst they were at school. So he would have picked up on interactions, and obviously if Snape was hanging around Lily and stuff like that.
Right, do you know what? I'm going to say that. Do you think Hagrid, as lovely as he is going to pick up on the social cues of that? A man sold him a dragon egg in the pub and he thought, this is fine. I just don't buy it. I just do not buy it.
No, I don't think he might have. Well, I'll give Hagrid I'll give him my vote. I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt.
So are you saying that Hagrid knew about the James, Lily and Snape affair?
Yes.
I call it affair, even though it was not actually an affair. It was an infatuation that was not reciprocated.
Yes, I'm pretty sure he knew about this triangle.
Okay, so that is a question I will be putting to our dear listeners this evening via our Instagram story.
So we move on to the break-in at Gringotts vaults.
Break-in at Gringotts!
Yes. So we find out the newspaper clippings that there was indeed a break-in at Gringotts the very same day that Harry and Hagrid took something out of the vault.
I wonder who could have done that. Do you know who my money's on?
Who?
Dorris Crockford.
Clearly. Shady handshakes, wouldn't let go of Harry.
Exactly. Show what she was doing. She was picking a pocket or two, getting that tiny wee key, making a copy of it, and then sliding it back in when she put the handshake on.
Exactly. You know what she was doing with the handshake? She was getting fingerprints. Bets on Dorris Crockford, of course. I don't know why I didn't see it coming earlier.
I know. She is the original prisoner of Azkaban. That's why she said, I can't believe I'm meeting you at last, because I've been inside for 40 years. I've been doing time.
Day one, I get to meet Harry Potter.
Day one. Day two, Rob Gringotts. Day three, back in the cells.
She was actually just on day release.
I know. Dorris Crockford is the Jean Valjean of the Harry Potter franchise.
There was indeed a break-in at Gringotts. It was indeed the very same day that Harry and Hagrid were there retrieving the stone.
Yes, but at this point we do not know that it's the stone.
We don't. What is it referred to? A grubby little package.
I mean, a lovely little package.
No, grubby.
That's what they call me. And have you done something to your finger? You look like you've got a bruised finger. I think it was just when you did that. It looked like you'd properly banged your...
Oh, no.
You know when like some...
It's just probably the lighting because I've got a direct light above me.
Yeah, I see. It's like, you know when someone bangs their fingernail against something and it just dies?
Yeah.
So, do you know how they fixed that, by the way?
They take the nail off.
Yeah. I only found that out about 2 months ago.
No, I love... That's part of what I used to do as my role.
No, that gives me the absolute fear. No. No, that is a saw trap. You are John Kramer. You are Jigsaw. You are the Jigsaw killer, Will. Absolutely not. That
it's
is
already
vile.
dead. They don't feel it. And you numb the
No,
you
I
numb
don't
the
care.
area.
I don't care. That is absolutely vile. That is absolutely... But I have seen some shit in my time, but that is horrific.
It's nail-biting procedure.
Anywho.
So, we end this chapter in Hagrid's hut. They are talking about the recent break-in in Gringotts. And actually, we're now starting to see that red herring come full circle back to pointing it towards...
Dorris Crockford.
Of course. Fuck's sake. To who?
Oh, Snape.
Yeah, so we get the red herring pointing directly to Snape.
100% convinced. She convinced me no other. Dorris Crockford did break into Gringotts.
You know the thing for this week's episode.
Oh my god. Oh. I'm sorry. This woman is an icon. Like, can we just... It's the nails as well. Like, she's got the full-blown, scraggly nails. I'm going to send this picture to you.
They don't let you cut your nails in Azkaban, AJ.
Well, exactly. All the more reason. I am sorry that the signs are there. The woman is a convicted criminal.
Red flags.
Red flags. She was sent to prison by Barty Crouch himself. She was the unnamed person, part of the torture of the Auror Frank and his wife Alice Longbottom. She was there. She was the orchestrator. She walked so Voldemort could run. I tell you this now. Dorris Crockford, criminal mastermind, Kaiser Sose of the Wizarding World. Wrap it up, bitch.
Let's wrap this up. So, yeah, we've ended the chapter, finished with Hagrid's hut, and we're now fully endorsed into thinking this is Snape's doing.
Yeah.
So, wrapping up this chapter, what are your overall thoughts of this chapter, AJ?
Oh, I loved it. It was really good. What I will say is, though, I would have liked to have seen a bit more of Professor Quirrell's class in the movie. But I must admit, I did like this chapter because you got to see a lot of things. You were introduced to a lot more characters and a bit more in depth, and it was lovely. I loved it.
You know what I would have liked to see more of?
Enlighten me. Dorris Crockford.
Yeah, I must admit, I really liked this chapter. And actually, like you, I would have really liked to have seen more of the classes. Not just Defense Against the Dark Arts, but more of the classes in general in the movies. Just because of how much world building this chapter creates within Hogwarts. We've had the Wizarding World, but now we're kind of getting into the world building of Hogwarts itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are we heading to next, AJ?
I've got no idea. I was Googling pictures of Dorris Crockford. Let me see, Will. Where are we heading to? Wait a minute. We are going to What have we done? What have we done? Oh, we are doing Halloween in the Wizarding World.
Oh, fabulous. So,
which I think is just essentially Halloween.
it's basically just Halloween. So join us next week for another spooky episode of the Wisdom Wireless Network. So as always, keep your radios tuned in and we will see you next week.
Bye!
Bye-bye!